Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, pause this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. In the context of this podcast, everybody refers to us and our cat. You are free to feel however you want about Rand, who is a fictional character. Don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
I just was in my room getting my laptop charger, and Tybalt comes creeping at the doorway, and legitimately I turn around and see him, and he whips around to escape so fast that he ran fully into the wall.
Oh.
Like I heard his head do
Oh.
a little bonk.
Baby.
It was sad, but he seems to be fine. He is behaving as normally.
Doesn't seem that
Just don't ever let anyone
Brain
convince you that cats are naturally graceful creatures.
Tybalt
Tybalt's
is
a
not.
fucking klutz.
Yeah, Tybalt falls over a lot. And he's also very easy to push over.
Yeah, he has no center of gravity.
Yeah.
He's just like, whoop.
I'm not saying we, push over our cat, but sometimes when we play with him, we, wrestle a little bit.
Yeah.
And
like,
he's
cats
just like, what?
like.
Yeah. He just, gives in immediately and is over.
Yeah, you know he wants you to push him over because he'll start attacking your leg.
Yeah.
Like, I wanna fight this, specifically.
He's a tiny bastard man. And also the love of my life. This is Everybody Hates Rand. Let's just get it out there. This is Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Sally Goodger.
I'm Emily Jushaw.
That was a car that just drove by very fast.
Sorry, you guys can hear those all the time in the background. Every month, my dad is like, I got on the Zoom call with my family yesterday, and my mom said, Emily, you're so punctual, I'll give you $1. And I said, wow, $1. My mom says inane things like this all the time. And my dad goes, Emily sent me $300 today. And I was like, first of all, it was $350, and second of all, that was my car payment, which I send you every month, Dad.
Yeah.
I don't know why it shocks you every time. And he's like, I don't really keep track of that. Do you send it to me right at the beginning of the month? And I'm like, yes, we have a spreadsheet detailing. It's insane.
Don't want to dunk on your dad.
I would love to dunk on my dad.
But
Devin told me I like Hades so much because it allows me to project fighting my dad.
Listen, it sounds like a game I would love.
It's great.
But imagine living a life where you can just not keep track of $300.
I know, I was thinking my car will be paid off in September or October, which is fantastic. Because then for the next however long it is until I have to buy a new car, that just won't be a payment that I have to make. That's $300 more in my wallet every month.
Yeah.
Fuck, I'm gonna be able to buy so much shit.
Yes.
Save so much money. Go on vacation.
What?
I know.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, he's so fucking rich. I hate him.
I feel that way about more my dad, but even sometimes my mom, because my mom has a really good job. It's very important. And so she makes a lot of money. And so she'll just be like, long and convoluted story. My brother and sister-in-law are living in the house. They have a newborn baby. The newborn baby really likes this swing. And my mom was like, it was just easier to just buy another swing than bring it up and down the stairs.
Oh my god.
And in part it makes sense because my nephew has a heart condition, so he's on oxygen. But it's not like baby swings are cheap. That was at least $100. And she was just like, I was like, I love you, Mom, but
Wealthy grandmas are, made to be stopped.
right?
Sarah, my sister, who has 2 boys, 2 toddlers, is like, Mom, stop buying things. And my mom just, can't. Yeah,
my mom, we are going down to visit, my other brother and his family for Valentine's Day. And my mom bought my my niece's Valentine's Day presents, which is, like, sweet, but, like, not a thing you normally do.
Yeah, $10 my mom buys everyone Valentine's Day presents.
So I was like, what did you get them? She's like, I got Liz, like, a dinosaur costume kit, and I had to get Zoe one, too, so I had to get the baby one. I'm like, Zoe is a bambino who wears no clothes. She's not going to wear. So anyway, wealthy grandmas are insane, and then wealthy dads are a menace to society.
This reminds me of that evergreen time that I got $50 in my Venmo account marked as a souvenir from Europe from my mom. Oh god, speaking of white people problems, Rand.
I hate this chapter that we read.
I know, I was like, it's rancid as I threw it at Sally.
Yeah. I was like,
it's very bad.
Great. But it is just, like, extremely, Rand refuses to have any cultural understanding. It's just, like, Rand refusing repeatedly to make any effort to understand the Ale at all.
Concessions.
Yeah.
And then it just ends with Padon Fane leading off a woman to be raped.
Yeah.
So, like, great, Robert. Right?
Yeah.
That's so fantastic.
Yeah, it's just, like, Rand is being an asshole to a bunch of women throughout, and then there's Padon Fane gonna rape a woman for...
I know, there's a moment, this chapter is titled Letters, and it is where Rand is given 3 letters from 3 different women, 2 from the Sea Folk leaders, one of whom is in Cairhien, one of whom is in Caemlyn. Both are requesting audiences. The one in Caemlyn is pretty justifiably angry because Rand set up a meeting with her and then fucking ditched.
Yeah, and then fucked off to another country.
Where he ignored the Sea Folk leader there also.
And again, fucked off to another country.
Yeah. And the third is a very polite letter from Alejandra, who is Queen of Galdon. Mm-hmm. We have met her briefly via Nynaeve, and she'll be part of Perrin's coterie, as I mentioned. Mm-hmm. And she's basically making an overture to Rand, being like, hi, here's my country, we are willing to accept you as the Dragon Reborn, but, you know, between the lines, we do also need help with the Prophet, who is starting cult mobs in your name.
Yeah, and Rand's like, oh yeah, I gotta deal with that.
And Rand's like, oh, fuck yeah, I forgot about
Gotta put that one back on the to-do list.
And at one point, Rand says that he's just going to put off both Sea Folk women because he does not want to deal with any more, he calls them touchy women. Meaning moody women. Which is like, it's so insane that Rand is just like classifying them as women he doesn't want to deal with. It's like they are leaders of people. And you are supposed to be leading a lot of people, or at least that is the route you have chosen as your prophesied savior of the world.
Yeah.
So these are basically foreign dignitaries, and you're treating them like they're your best friend's sister who you don't want to deal with.
Yeah, it's like, Rand, this is diplomacy.
Get some.
Yeah. And it's just like, you literally, have to be a diplomat greeting these foreign dignitaries. You don't get to just be like, ugh, women. It's the peak, like, women are too emotional to be in politics. And it's like, they're pissed off because you're treating them like you're being a dick.
Yeah, like, first off, they are justified in being pissed off. Second of all, yes, the Sea Folk are difficult. We know that based on the rest of the book because they have very different culture.
Yeah.
And they're really, like, going out on a limb here. They've left the sea. They're in the fucking river.
Yeah.
Make some concessions.
And yeah, it's the same thing he's doing with the Ale. Like, the Ale have left their homeland, been completely culturally shattered, yet they still, the majority of them, still continue to follow Rand. And he's just like, I simply cannot understand this honor system that is integral to who you are as a people.
Yeah, Avienda spends a bunch of time lecturing him about Giotto, and Rand just spends the entire time flagellating himself for how much he enjoys looking at her. If everybody doesn't hate Rand after reading this chapter,
you will.
Then get a clue.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he's so wretched. He's just like, the Giotto is too complicated. The Sea Folk are too aggressive. There's literally, he's tone policing the Sea Folk. He's like, they are too aggressive. Which codes really well Robert Jordan, because most of the Sea Folk are people of color. So.
Yeah, black people specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god, Robert.
The racism, the misogyny.
He makes me insane.
I hate this man.
To be a little more chronological, Rand wakes up, or spends the rest of his day in Cairhien, basically in a ceaseless panic, because he has now concluded that Lews Therin is not just a, like, projected voice in his head that is coming from Rand himself, but is, like, a separate entity.
Yeah.
I guess. And it's a little odd because we were not in Rand's head when he came to this conclusion. We were in Edwin's point of view.
Yeah.
When he had that moment of, like, looking into the distance and, like, you are there. So we don't even know, like, what Lews Therin said or did.
He's like, you a bitch!
Fuck off! But Rand is pretty, upset by that, which is understandable. Although I will say that throughout most of this book and some of the last book, I think, it feels like every chapter Rand is, like, waffling over Lews Therin and whether he's really there.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, saying the same thing over and over about it. Trying to... There's a moment where Lews Therin is like, death. And Rand's like, what the fuck? And Lews Therin's like, death. And Rand's like, what are you talking about? And Lews Therin goes, who are you? Where am I? And Rand's like, I'm Rand. You're inside my head. And Lews Therin goes, inside? No, I'm myself. I am Lews Therin Telamon. I am me. Which is insane. But during this, Rand says, this was the first time Lews Therin had said anything to him, something clearly and plainly addressed to him. Which I just feel like that exact sentence has been said before.
Yeah, I was reading that too, and I'm like, that's not correct.
I feel like he's said a bunch of things to you, and every
Yeah.
time you've been like, oh fuck, this is the first time he's talked to me.
Yeah, because, like, especially with Mazrim 10, the whole thing is that Lews Therin is always like, you gotta kill him.
Yeah. And Rand's like, why? And Lews Therin's like, because he's dangerous. And Rand's like, oh my god, he's interacting with me.
Yeah, and then every single time it's like, what? Oh my god.
Rand has, like, goldfish brain when it comes to Lews Therin. Every single time he forgets that they've talked before.
And we could be generous and say this is a stylistic choice to help portray Rand's increasing madness. But am I willing to give Robert Jordan that much credit?
And it's just, like, frustrating because we are mostly occupying Rand's head. I think if you're having a character who is suffering from psychological distress and some sort of psychosis, which I think the hearing voices qualifies, then it would really benefit us to see it from outside of that character as well as from inside.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we're inside Rand's head, we're fully in his head. We can't delineate between reality and madness, you know?
Yeah.
But when you have, like, people like Edwin saying, he's acting a little weird, and you have a lot of people saying that, then, I don't know, it contributes more to the idea that Rand is actually going insane.
Yeah.
That's just, like, a stylistic viewpoint of mine, though, I guess.
No, I mean, I think you're right. Like, it's Rand, as we've discussed at length in other books, is an unreliable narrator for many reasons. He always portrays himself in the best possible light and portrays other people in pretty much the worst possible light at any given moment. So it's always kind of hard to cut through what's actually happening, and then you add on top of that his supposed increasing, madness, his falling into insanity, and so it's like, what are we supposed to get out of this versus moments where Matt's like, Lews Therin, and Rand turns around. Like, that's a very chilling moment.
Those are so good.
Yeah.
And so few and far between,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't think benefits the narrative. I think, like, I'm probably watching too much Criminal Minds, but, like, if you have an episode of Criminal Minds that is, like, centered on the criminal whose mind you are investigating.
The criminal's mind.
The criminal's mind, then, like, the show usually takes the structure of, like, stepping inside the criminal's mind and then stepping back out to the people who are psychoanalyzing them.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be able to remove yourself from the situation in order to see it clearly.
Yeah.
It just seems basic to me. But again, I've been watching too much Criminal Minds.
No, I get it. I'm at a point in the Path of Daggers where we've been in Rand's point of view for several chapters, or predominantly Rand's point of view, and he is, like, very much struggling with his sanity at this point, and it's just, like, it only really becomes clear when, like, Davram Bashir is tackling him off a horse and stuff like that. it, like, is difficult to, again, kind of cut through what is happening at all when Rand is just doing his Rand thing.
So Rand is like, oh my god, Lews Therin is real. He, gets up the next morning in Cairhien, like, before it is even daybreak. And he's shaving, and he has this emo moment where he looks in the mirror and shatters the mirror. It's like an Evanescence music video.
Wake me up inside!
And you're like, calm down.
Rand and mirrors, man.
And he says to himself, I need to stop running and just, like, just start, doing things. He's like, I'm just running away from my fear of loving Elaine and my fear of loving Avienda, blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, okay, I have to go. So he decides to go back to Camelin, presumably to stop running. Very confusing.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I think Camelin is supposed to symbolize, like, the things he is running from in Cairhien is, like, his refuge.
I guess.
And so he's just, like, pendulum swinging between these two people as he's like, I'm desperate and I need to run away, to I need to stop running away and being such a coward.
Yeah.
Which is, like, again, he can teleport Robert Jordan. We shouldn't be necessarily using the teleportation to this effect.
What if we did it to, like, go deal with Moss?
To, like, further the plot.
Go check on your dad.
Anything.
Close the way gates like you said you were going to.
Yeah, so he is just about to leave Cairhien when he gets the first letter from the sea folk who are in Cairhien. He, of course, pockets it, ignoring it. And then gets back to Camelin, where he immediately feels Alana and is like, aw dunk. Then he goes to his room, and he's just in, like, the front room when Avienda comes out of the back room, which is the bedroom that they share, and she's naked, and is like, excuse me, and then turns around to go get dressed. And all the maidens are like, LOL.
I know, and then Rand is like, the ale are so frustrating. Avienda is fine to let me see her naked when she wants me to see her naked, but is mad when I see her naked when she doesn't want me to see her naked.
And you're like, yes?
Like, what are you talking about?
That's how agency works?
He makes me so furious.
Like, to clarify, seeing a person naked once does not, like, grant you permission to see them naked whenever you want.
Yeah. There's this, like...
You need consent every time.
Sorry to bring Friends into this, but there's this scene that I always think of in Friends where after Ross and Rachel break up for, like, the millionth time or whatever, like, something happens and she's like, I'm gonna go change, and he's like, I've already seen you naked, and she's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna, like, go into another room and change. He's like, look, I'm closing my eyes and picturing you naked, and she's like, you're an asshole, and he's like, what? It's like, yeah, consenting. And Rand is like, but I've already seen her naked, it doesn't matter.
It's like, yes, it does. Context matters.
Context will always matter.
And her agency matters.
It's just like, I just don't get it.
Oh my god.
Let me see the titties.
Ugh.
It's like, you could see them if you're being less of a dick about everything.
And he's just like, I don't get ale. And one of the maidens is like, you don't understand women. And I'm like, he doesn't understand consent. It's not a gender thing. It's a sexual, like, dynamics thing.
Yeah.
That's when he has his little death interaction with Lews Therin.
Death.
I'm me!
Lews Therin is actually very funny sometimes.
I know.
There's a line in The Path of Daggers that I just read where he's like, I destroyed the world and you can too if you try hard enough.
Motivational poster.
Yeah, no, literally my title for that blog is like that line and like Lews Therin's motivational TED Talk or something like that. Like, it was so
Just try
funny.
harder. You want the apocalypse? You can do it.
If anyone is keen to make us a motivational poster that says, I destroyed the world and you can too if you try
Like a
hard
cat
enough.
hanging on.
Yeah, we have a perfect spot right where we're starting to hang it.
Oh.
Like, I think he's very funny.
Anyway, then he's like staring off into the middle distance when Avienda comes back and is like in tween, like, are you good? He's like, yeah, I'm just thinking. And she's like, okay, well, in that case, it really sucked that you just left without telling me again. Like, intentionally without telling me. Because it's my job to stay close to you, and apparently you can't parse that from our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
things are struggling. So then she's like, to the maidens, you need to tell me when he's going somewhere. And the maidens are like, sure. And Rand's like, ugh.
He's like, hold on a second.
You shouldn't be able to do that. And they're like, we can do what we want, fuckface.
It's like, it's called agency, right?
So go away.
How come you're the only one who gets it? For some reason, you're the only one who's allowed to have thoughts and opinions and make decisions.
The narcissism really jumps out.
Yeah.
Then, what's her name? Rain, Mistress Harfor, the first maid, shows up to give him the next letter from the sea folk, and also to tell him that a bunch of Andorran nobility, most of whom were driven out by Ravin, are now starting to return to the city, although they haven't, like, formally announced that they're there. And Rin's like, okay, that's, like, good overall. And then he looks at the letters, both of which are similar. We already talked about those. They're addressed to the Coromor, which we also referenced is the sea folk version of the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah.
And he is just like, okay, I'm just, like, not going to do anything with these. He says, maybe I'll just be able to pacify this one sea folk woman with Bashir, because he has so many titles that usually pacifies people. I'm like, that pacifies Westerners, you know, in the real world sense.
Yeah.
These European lookalikes.
Yeah.
But this is an entirely different culture. Titles don't necessarily matter to them.
Yeah, also they're coming specifically to talk to you. Like, Bashir is lovely, but he's not the Coromor. Be a vastly different book if he was.
Then a servant enters the room to deliver yet another letter. And Rand, taking the letter, realizes that the servant is Sulin. He's like, what are you doing in a dress?
Yeah.
And Sulin, like Naruto, runs away.
Such a good image.
She has to respond. He's like, Sulin, come back. And she's like, fuck off. And leaves. And then Mistress Harfor leaves. She's like, I told you this wouldn't work. Like, she needs to be representing the palace better to one of the maidens. And then, like, she also leaves. And Rand's like, what is going on? And the maidens are like, well, Sulin and Nandura is the maiden who's now basically in charge of Rand's bodyguard. She's like, well, first Sulin and I went to the kitchens, but the chef was racist or whatever and wouldn't let her scrub pots. So then we went to Mistress Harfor because she's basically the roof mistress. Which, you know, Rand's like, they don't have a word for first maid. And I'm like, I think we can agree Mistress Harfor is basically the power in the Andorran palace.
Yeah, like, Rand, you're nothing.
But they're like, she is just doing this really incredible. Sulin has more courage than Nandura says, and there's some, like, ale stuff. And Rand's like, I really don't get it, like, why is she doing this? Did she, like, marry an ale man? And the maidens are like, she is fully a lesbian, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
At least that's the subtext. And they're like, Sulin's meeting her toe, and it literally has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Which is technically untrue. As we referenced when it happened, Sulin did a big breach of etiquette when she asked various Guy Shane to go find other maidens and bodyguards to accompany Rand to Shadar Logoth. This is such a big breach in etiquette that this is how Sulin has chosen to meet her toe.
Yeah, because she referenced them by their society, which you're not supposed to do.
Like, used maiden hand talk.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot.
To Guy Shane, and, like, it's a thing that you don't do with Guy Shane is, like, refer to the fact that they were maidens, or Rand says 9 of the 13 warrior societies. That's, like, a big no-no. So, this is how Sulin has chosen to handle this. And Rand is like, well, I should be able to do something about this, because technically she did that for me. Which is like, it is true, Rand, that your disregard for your own safety and your, like, weird relationship with Sulin and whether or not you have bodyguards influenced her to do this, but she is still a woman with agency who chose to do it.
Yeah, this is, again, just, like, a primo example of Rand being like, I am capable of taking responsibility for the decisions of every woman in my life.
It's nuts.
For some, yeah. Oh my god. Hate him.
And Rand's like, so don't I have to her? And all of the Ale women are totally scandalized by this.
Yeah.
And Rand takes the moment to read this letter from Alejandra, which is like basically written in a little code, so it's not obvious it's being written to the Dragon Reborn. But it's just like, hey, we need help over here in Hampton.
Pulse.
Hey, I heard you can teleport. Maybe.
Maybe teleport over here and deal with your fucking prophet. And Rand's like, oh no.
Rand's like, but this is exciting. Like, here's a ruler who's approaching him without me literally invading their country. Now I just need to get Elaine back. And I'm like,
I know.
Your to-do list is whack.
Like, it's no matter what happened, it could be like, someone is about to stab me. It could be like, most important thing is getting Elaine back in Andor.
He's nuts. Why?
It's like, everything else is less important, but he's not even doing anything to get Elaine back in Andor.
Yeah, except, like, interrogating Egg.
Yeah.
Occasionally about where she is. And it's like, no one's gonna tell you where she is. You can't find her.
Yeah.
Either you send out messages throughout Andor being like, hey, Elaine, I need you.
Yeah, he also hasn't really done anything to be like, Elaine Turkand is the rightful queen of Andor.
Except tell people whenever they ask him about it.
Instead of, like, making a proclamation that's like, this country is for Elaine, come back.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh no, I don't want to be king, when people happen to mention it to him. It's so ridiculous. Like,
Well, then a gray man comes in.
as if enough wasn't going on.
Yeah, nothing like an early morning assassination attempt.
Yeah.
It's the usual gray man stuff. They don't realize it's happening until it's happening. Rand stops the guy, but at literally the same time, Mazrim Tem, like, burns a hole in him.
Yeah.
And Rand's like, what the fuck? Like, clearly Mazrim Tem is coming out of Rand's bed chambers. So, it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Rand's like, what are you doing here? Mazrim Tem's like, well, I traveled to your balcony, which I'm like,
Why?
Security problem, first of all. You shouldn't have, showed this guy how to teleport if this is how he's gonna use it.
I'm in your bedroom, surprise!
To your balcony? Like, imagine if Rand had actually been there. Just this little knock on the window. And it's the worst man you know.
Very Romeo and Juliet moment between Rand and Mazrim Tem.
It's like, oh, fuck.
God, he's the worst man you know knocking at your balcony.
Terrible.
Yeah.
But Rand's like, do you have big news? Like someone learning to travel too fast? Learning to channel too fast? Indicating one of the Forsaken? And Mazrim Tem goes, no, but I thought you should hear the news, which is that we found a guy who, like, has the spark in him.
Yeah.
His name's Narishma. He's a beautiful boy. Everyone loves him. You should stop by the school sometime. And Rand's like, okay, great. And no one is like, that news justified him
I know.
teleporting to your balcony?
I was like, listen, I love Narishma as much as the next person. I think he's beautiful and precious with the tinkling little bells on his braids. But, like, for fuck's sake, you could have, like, sent an email. Like, come see my new boy.
Don't they have carrier pigeons or something?
No one is like, this is not suspicious.
Yeah, Mazrim Tem, why do you need to do this?
Yeah, it is bananas.
Rand says, I'm surprised you haven't suggested we just, like, go after Samael. And Tim's like, well, I've thought about it, but I think if I were Samael, I'd be a little smarter about defending the city. And Rand's like, yeah, I think so too. Well, have fun at your murder school. Your murder boarding house.
Yeah.
American Andoran Horror Story.
Andoran Horror Story, The Black Tower.
Whatever. And Tim's like, okay, bye. And then leaves.
And then teleports also away from the balcony.
And it's like, oh my god. And then Rand is like, realizes his bodyguards are probably not feeling great about the fact that a gray man came in, and so he makes a big deal out of being like, don't tell anyone, so that they don't have to, reveal that an assassin got in on their watch. But they're like, thanks, and they leave. And then Rand's like, okay, Avienda, you wanted to talk? And she is like, let's just talk about... She just lectures him about Giotto. And he is like, oh my god, her eyes are so beautiful. I hate myself.
So stupid.
Stupid.
And it's like, I would love to actually hear this lecture that Avienda is giving.
Yeah, what
in
does she have to say
hope
about
to
it?
better understand this honor code.
But no, they always skim over it, which is like Robert Jordan always does this. He always skims over the explanations that Avienda, or anyone really, is providing. And so every time we hear about Giotto, it is a quote-unquote Westerner character saying, it's too complicated for me to understand. Or it is an Ale character who is just streamlining it into their stream of consciousness so that it just kind of flows right in.
Yeah.
But the problem with deleting all of those actual explanations is that you are devaluing them, not just for the character who is hearing them, but for us, the readers, and basically saying, like, this isn't important, I don't actually ever want you to understand Giotto.
Yeah, or
Which
just...
is like, then do you understand Giotto, Robert Jordan, or did you just make it incomprehensible for funsies?
That's what I was gonna say. It feels like a world-building thing that Robert was like, I'm not ever actually going to explain it, so I can use it in whatever way I want to.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, it has, like, deeply racist and xenophobic, you know, implications when characters are just, like, simply too complicated. I am not going to listen.
And
nothing here is important, even though I am, like, demanding every single day that the Ale conform more and more to Western
it's also
expectations.
just, like, whitewashing fantasy in the way that history itself is whitewashed. Like, I've been reading this book called The Indigenous People's History of the United States, which is a really interesting book, and deserves further discussion. But I was reading it, I've been thinking a lot about how the Ale and Native Americans have a lot of similarities, including in the honor system, something, it's written by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz. And she said something about how warfare wasn't as violent prior to Europeans arriving on the continent. It was a very honor-based system. Like, there's the phrase counting coup, which involves, I'm sorry, I don't know which specific tribe or band or nation it was, but it's like a thing about touching people in battle rather than actually killing them, and like you get more honor that way, which is very similar to the system of Guy Shane.
Yeah.
And like you get more honor for taking someone captive without killing them.
Yeah.
Which explains a lot about the attitude of Native Americans to Europeans, not necessarily predicting that they would be as murderous as they were immediately, but also just like has a lot to do with maybe if we understood Native Americans better, we'd be able to understand Ale better, and vice versa. If Robert Jordan was better schooled in the cultures from which he is drawing inspiration.
Yeah, instead of just kind of like cherry picking something that he thinks is interesting, and so he's going to then utilize it for his fantasy series without really grasping the culture.
He's just glossing over them the same way American history books gloss over experiences we don't want to highlight.
Yeah.
Because they're unpleasant to think about.
Yeah. And I mean, you're right. He does the same with like every culture that he draws from, like the, I can't think of.
Tinkers?
No, just like the other cultures he draws from with the Ale, like nomadic tribes in the Middle East and stuff. Bedouin, is that the name?
Bedouin, yeah.
Just like the way he's like, there's all these clans and sects and tribes, and this is the way that they move, and it's like you're just not even giving any attention to those things that are like super important. Whatever. That was just another example of the smarter thing Emily said.
He makes me so angry. We then switch over to horrifically I pray to God, only Padon Fane point of view in the book. We haven't heard from him since book 4, so like we had a reprieve from Perrin in book 5, we also had a reprieve from Padon Fane. The only actual information we get from this that is relevant is that those White Cloak assassins in the last chapter were not sent by Pedro Nile, but were part of Padanfane's little death cult that he cultivated while he was in the Two Rivers with a bunch of the White Cloaks. So he had a bunch of them, followed Rand to Andor, and was like, try and kill him. And they obviously failed. Padanfane is obsessed with Rand to the point of following him to Caemlyn, even though it would make more sense narratively for him to be obsessed with Mat.
And the dagger, yeah.
Yeah, there's the intersection of the dagger there. There's also no real reason, considering that Padanfane was sent to watch all 3 boys in the Two Rivers originally, that he would get hung up on Rand specifically, in my opinion. Also, Mat and Padanfane's storylines converge in the last book, so it would make a lot more sense if they were set up to converge throughout the series. Again, in my opinion, but that's just me. And yeah, Padanfane now has a new superpower where he has Dark Friend radar, which I'm sure is useful, but now he has a spy in the Caemlyn Palace, who of course he kills horribly with his fancy magic fingers, death fingers, and then takes his mother away to rape her. So, what a fun, lighthearted way to end the chapter. Gratuitous sexual assault. Just because you don't portray it on screen, Robert Jordan, doesn't mean you're not portraying it.
Yeah. Like, it is horrible to read. And also just, like all sexual assaults depicted in fiction, unnecessary.
I don't need it.
I already know Padanfane is a bad dude. You don't have to victimize women in order to further convince me that he's a bad guy.
Okay, well, as predicted, unless I delete the real estate rant, we have gone 48 minutes or so.
Delete the real estate rant.
Oh, I will. Hello, blooper reel. I just picked up the book upside down, and it actually reads better. You know what?
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah, that's me. The next few chapters will be based in Salidar. Nynaeve will discover how to heal stilling/gentling, which is great.
Good for her.
And a fun new technology, I guess. And then we'll have a skip over to Morgause and the White Cloaks, horrifically. But then the next major plotline after that is Egg getting summoned to the tower.
Egg!
Which is a long block of chapters because it involves everyone in Salidar, Egg's whole coterie in Kyrian, and also Mat just gets thrown in there last minute.
Because Rand again is like, nothing is more important than getting Elaine to Andor. Which is not even fighting the Forsaken is as important.
Fucking hilarious, because then Mat's just like, well, I can't make her do anything.
Yeah.
So wow. I guess I'm going to Ebu Dar with her.
Agency. What a concept. Mat Cathan gets it.
Sort of.
Well, fair.
He's a little bossy toward everyone.
Yeah, he's a little bossy.
But everyone's bossy to him, so that's just sort of a Wheel of Time. That's just like a
Just
symptom.
bossy,
you know you're a Wheel of Time character if you're unnecessarily bossy. And you have no friends.
And you have no friends, and your relationship is deeply dysfunctional.
So this has been fun. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Sorry, now I'm really angry.
It's okay.
Thanks for listening. Thank you to Glenna McKenzie for our theme song. Thank you to our supporters on Patreon and our social media followers. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything to add?
No.
Great. I know you have a sign off.
It's so dumb, you guys.
Go for it.
I'm a horrible, ridiculous person. So every Friday or Saturday, Emily watches a movie with her friends, Stefan and Jana, which is like the only time during the week where I'm like really left to my own devices. It's like the epitome of like, Emily is gone and she's 90% of my impulse control. So I just like increasingly do more chaotic things.
I'm not even gone. I'm literally upstairs.
It's the quarantine version of that. So this weekend, I was like feeling really bad about myself. It's like low self-esteem day. And then Emily was gone, completely gone, upstairs. So it's like, I'm going to download Bumble.
Wow.
And just see what happens. Yeah, I know it doesn't feel that chaotic, but for me, it's a chaotic
No, it's deeply
movement.
chaotic.
Yeah. Online dating is not my thing. And it ended up being a huge shot in the arm to my self-esteem as a reminder that I'm hilarious and charming, and there's not a single man in the state of Utah with a personality.
That's true.
Outside of hiking, which isn't a personality trait. I too know where the mountains are. They are hard to miss. So
They're actually around us.
yeah,
Everywhere
you look.
We live in a valley. They're 360 degrees, baby.
Yeah. Also, my Bumble settings are set to women and men, and I see one woman in 100, so are the algorithms homophobic? Probably. But anyway, ended up talking to this guy. And he was like, so what are you looking for? And I'm like, honestly, nothing. Like, it's a pandemic, and I don't leave the house because I provide childcare to two of my critically ill niece and my critically ill nephew. So, like, not really looking for anything, just kind of looking around. So feel free, if you, like, need to move on, whatever, you want to end this conversation, it's not a big deal to me. He's like, nah, I don't want to move on. You are pretty as balls. I, like, didn't respond for a while, obviously. And he was like, wait, no, that's not what I meant. Like, not like the ball sack. I'm like, okay, that's a phrase I use sometimes, you know, as balls. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So I made a joke. I'm like, wow, nobody's ever said that to me before. This is such a compliment. And he's like, that's not what I meant. But hey, like, do you have a Snapchat? I promise I won't, like, helicopter my penis or anything. Unless. And so it was like the double whammy of, like, you are pretty as balls and the haha unless, pretty much. But because I was having a day of low self-respect, I continued to talk to him for a little bit, at which point he proceeded to tell a story about how he got hit in the dick with a paintball.
What the fuck?
So, like, the only thing this man could talk about was his penis. So at that point, I reached my limit, and I was like, this was a mistake. Men are a disease. I'm considering a lifelong vow of chastity, which is a reasonable and I think mild response to being told, no, really just, like, hit with the Shakespearean prose of you, ma'am, are as beautiful as testicles. So, anyway, that was my Bumble experience.
This reminds me of the one time I downloaded Tinder just for fun, and I just, like, handed it to the sports editors at the newspaper I used to work at, and just let them go crazy. Let them experience the women's side of things.
Yeah.
But every man they swiped right on or whatever, is that how it works?
Yeah.
Right is good. Was just like, hey, wanna fuck?
Yeah.
And I was like, you guys wouldn't survive a moment.
Yeah, it is.
As you can't even see those red flags
Yeah.
in the pictures. Are there fish involved?
Are there fish involved?
Are there guns involved?
Is their name Brendan?
Yeah. Serious. There's only one good Brendan, and it's Brendan Fraser.
That's right.
Of The Mummy.
No, it was truly so heinous, because I very obviously was like, I don't leave my house. I'm not interested in having, like, no hookups are going to happen.
Right.
But apparently I wasn't clear enough in saying explicitly not going to have sex with you, because he's like, probably was like, she doesn't leave the house, but maybe I go to the house. Oh. So therefore I will continue to talk about my penis.
That's how it work.
And so I was like, goodbye, Anthony, goodbye.
Oh, Anthony.
Yeah.
You dumb fuck.
So anyway, I might keep Bumble just so I finally have EHR sign-offs again. I will suffer for your benefit and be told that I am pretty as balls. Imagine saying that to a woman.
Pretty as balls. Hey, maybe Anthony, you need to change your Bumble settings.
Yeah.
You find balls beautiful? Actually, I don't even know people who find men attractive who think balls are beautiful. They're universally.
Yeah, it's like, come on.
Okay, goodbye, everyone. Don't do war crimes.
Please don't be Anthony. Don't do
Don't
war
be
crimes.
Anthony. Goodbye.